Welcome to the EMEA Recruitment Podcast in partnership with our good friends at Operation Smile. To help us create new smiles for children with cleft lip and palate, please visit emearecruitment.eu/operation-smile. In this episode, we're joined by Olga Miller and Jude Kelly, CBE, the co-founders of SmartPurse, a financial toolkit to support women in becoming confident with money. With their experience, drive, and ideas, Olga and Jude explain how they've made a plan and have put it into action.
So, hello everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the EMEA Recruitment podcast in partnership with our good friends over at Operation Smile. As my colleague Rose mentioned, we're delighted to welcome Jude and Olga onto the podcast today. So hopefully you can both hear me okay?
Absolutely can, yeah.
Perfectly fine.
Perfect. Now, I'm really excited about the conversation today. There's a range of questions we've got to go through with you. Some have come internally from my colleagues here in the business, and actually some externally from the network. And I guess before going through some of the questions, I mean, clearly you guys are in business together, and I thought it might be good to get a bit of an understanding as to how this really actually came about. I mean, because I guess looking from the outside, it seems probably quite an unusual pairing. So how did you meet each other?
Well, maybe I'll begin. I'm Jude Kelly, and I am a theatre director and arts producer and commissioner. And for 12 years, I ran the South Bank Centre in London, which is one of the largest arts centres in Europe. And as part of that, as like a leading woman in the arts, I became aware that we really need to change the conversation around women's rights. I mean, this was in 2010. So I launched a festival called WOW, Women of the World, which is still in many countries, still going forward. And as part of that, I met up with Olga, who at that time was a leading light in UBS. And we talked together about the impact of conversations to do with money, women and money. And Olga came to the festival, and we had one of those big conversations. How do women feel about money? I was completely shocked by the results. To be honest, I had thought it was going to be quite a technical conversation with women asking quite technical questions. Instead of that, it was a hugely emotional experience of women sort of rallying round to each other, realizing that they had never really talked about money, that they had felt very kind of dismayed by conversations about money. They felt unconfident, they felt embarrassed, they felt some shame, and that they actually didn't really know enough, not just about, you know, what the credit card interest is, but sort of how they felt generally about owning and using and being an agent for money in the world. And I just found that completely revelatory. And it started the conversation then between Olga and I about, well, shouldn't we do something very specific about this lack of literacy, but also this lack of confidence, and also this kind of huge gap there is between women's potential to use money well in the world and the reality of where we are. So that's how it began. Olga, over to you.
Yeah, and I only can add to that I'm a woman that spent 15 years in finance, working in the world's largest wealth manager, UBS, probably having as much as one conversation about figures and millions of conversations about life and money. And when I met Jude, it was kind of a testing ground to figure out how could the bank, help people, and obviously with that also inspire them to join the bank as clients. And I detected that, it's a very different conversation to be held first and utmost before you come to the product. And I think that is what inspired us to create SmartPurse, which we are working on both today.
No, it's really, really interesting. And it's interesting from the point of view that obviously you met each other, you had these conversations, and you took actions to try and resolve the issue or work towards something to help the problem at hand. Because I think a lot of people may have these kind of meetings and then talk about some great ways that a problem can be solved, and then the next day it just gets forgotten about and they move on with other things. So maybe Olga first. I mean, what was it that really drove you to take it to the next level from a conversation with Jude and then to actually start to put the business in process, really?
Look, I think as it always is, partially it was life, right? Because our friendship began when I still was very well anchored in UBS and working there. And I think we carried on like this for about 3 years, observing people engaging on these money conversations on the Women of the World festivals. And then things changed. And so I still remember this like today. Jude and I early morning were sitting in a cafe in London, and we said, you know what? Maybe it's not effective what we are doing. Maybe financial education has to be approached very, very differently. And we need to create that trusted space. And from there on, we really went at this. Like we put a plan together, we put a deck together, we started pitching the idea, and we just started doing it. And all in a sudden we were doing it, not just thinking about it, but doing it.
No, it's cool. I think, sometimes people can overthink situations, and there's that phrase analysis paralysis, where they can analyze things too much and then nothing really gets actioned and followed up on. So it's really great that you both saw there was something there where help was needed, and have acted on that to come up with a solution. So obviously where you are now with the company SmartPurse, maybe Jude, to go with you on this one. I mean, what does it feel like to be the founder or the co-founder of SmartPurse at this moment in time?
Well, I'm proud because I know that, Olga and I kind of grasped the nettle and just like thought, well, we can't just talk about it. We have to kind of go forward. And we started doing something which I have no experience of founding a commercial company. I've founded lots of charities in my time. I've founded lots of organizations. But I mean, in a sense, I'm on a very steep learning curve, and I love that. But I also felt as if there is something about the zeitgeist. We sense that this conversation about women and money was really urgent and essential. We couldn't have predicted COVID, that's made it even more essential. And we couldn't really have predicted the financial markets, and partly to do with issues to do with sustainability and ideas of investment. So many things have now kind of come together to make SmartPurse even more relevant than we knew it was 3 years ago. So it's great to be in the right place at the right time, and for good reasons. I don't think I would have started something just because I thought, well, there's some cash to be made here. That's not been our motivation. Although, as women talking about money, we need to make it commercially viable. But I mean, I think the main thing is it feels as if the response from so many women and men actually is, this is relevant, we need it. Let's get on board. And so that's very, it feels very good. It feels very joyful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. What about yourself, Olga?
Look, it's like sitting on a roller coaster every day, right? So you get the thrill, you get the adrenaline, you get the excitement, then you get the scare as well. Because what we are doing is to go and invent a thing that wasn't here before, because if there had been a solution for how to connect women and young people to financial services in a meaningful way, SmartPurse wouldn't be needed. So in that regard, I think it's a journey of discovery, which is great. And to me, it feels like a roller coaster with all the ups and downs that are in it, but I definitely enjoy the ride.
I'll tell you one more thing that's been very important is that, I mean, Olga and I were not like deep long-term friends. We instinctively liked each other, and we'd worked together in quite a sort of short bursts way with the WOW festivals once a year, as Olga said. But when we took the leap to decide to be co-founders, we were doing a bit like you do, I think, when you fall in love. I mean, we both kind of went, well, do we trust this other person? Are we going to make an unconditional commitment to be co-founders? And we did that, and it's worked really well. And we've tried to work together with the kind of ethics and style of what we would like, how we would like people to behave to each other. So we respect each other's talents, we're interested in each other's ideas. And, I certainly find Olga like daily impressive. And so, that's been great. In other words, we invested in a trusting way, and it's worked. I don't say that's, what everybody can do, but I think it's a bit one of those things that you've got to really, really determine that you will not stay on the sidelines once you go into a commitment with somebody as a business partner.
No, I agree. And I think you mentioned the key word in that, and it is trust. I think you've got to you've got to trust each other, that you know that you've got the best interest of the company at the heart of everything you do. It's clear, you can tell when you're both talking about the venture, the drive and enthusiasm you have for it. And I think if people a good business partnership, even from my own experience, I know that if you both work hard and you've got that trust level, then a lot of the other things fall into place. But I think they're the key foundations of a good partnership in business, aligned with having a need for the market, which I think obviously you mentioned, you both mentioned earlier on, that you saw there was a need for women to have some help in relation to money and education in this side of things. Why do you think that is? Do you think there's a reason why that lack of knowledge really has come around? I don't know who wants to go first answering that one, but it was just a question I thought I'd ask before we go into the philosophies of SmartPurse, really.
Well, maybe I'll start, and then Olga can talk about some of the things that we've done in relationship to this. So, it's not unusual to have a situation where history has given people, less power, less agency, less involvement. And women have traditionally been shut out of finance and many things. But particularly, if money makes the world go round in sort of powerful ways, women haven't been part of that power. And not only that, but women have been in some places treated specifically as commodities themselves. And there is still that element that gives women kind of consumer rights, but then a great amount of policing about the kind of consumerism that they'll participate in. And so I think that women have really been told that it's not their thing. And, like many other things, engineering, design, maths and science, it's going to take quite a while for women to understand that not only should they have the confidence, but that the world needs them to have it. Because in every other area, whether you talk about medical health or education, once women have taken an equal place within it, then the expansive nature of that area of public or private life becomes so much richer, so much better. So it's time for women to take a hold of finance, but it's history that has stopped us doing it.
No, I think I think you can see this philosophy starting to come through with a lot of companies now as well, trying to work on their diversity and inclusion programs, trying to get talent pools in place for focusing on women into the senior level roles and in different disciplines where previously it's been very male led, and I agree, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It takes time for on both sides. I think it's for women to have the confidence, I guess, to be able to put themselves forward for either these kind of roles or for this learning, but also I think for on the other side, for companies and so on to actually change the mindset and be more open to looking at different avenues, really, rather than going back historically what was they've been doing in the past, really.
Yeah, there's also another dimension to it, which is to do with gender politics at a domestic level. So obviously, most people are in a relationship with somebody of the opposite sex, and specifically men's sort of masculine power has been partly defined by being the breadwinner, by being the knowledge person with regard to money. And a lot of men and women find that a tremendous tension in their lives. It's not sort of done for women to overtake men in financial knowledge. It's not done for women to earn more than men. Now, even though we say, well, okay, that's a bit old-fashioned now, actually those things run really deep inside society. And boys are still kind of, if you like, encouraged to feel as if they can be investors and they can kind of, put their money and their thinking into objects that will acquire wealth. And women and girls are still very much told that they need to look pretty and spend their money on things that are very ephemeral. So, it's not just the way that corporates operate, it's the way that domestic life grooms us and trains us, and how to create relationships that allow women to have a different level of power in the home life that they've never had before.
Hi everybody, it's Paul Thomas here. I hope that you're well and you're enjoying the podcast so far. Thank you once again for your continued support listening to the podcast. I just wanted to break into the recording to talk to you about a really exciting new partnership that EMEA Recruitment has along with Operation Smile. And as founder of EMEA Recruitment, it's an honour and a privilege to announce this partnership. Personally, I was born with a cleft lip and palate, so the mission of Operation Smile is something that I have a strong personal connection with. It's not an understatement to say that the dentists and surgeons that helped me were life changers. It's not only about the actual operations that take place, the support and care post and pre-operation are beyond value, and from personal experience I can only say that I'd not be the confident, happy person I am today without this support. I want to help children experience the support and care and skill that I experienced on my journey and hope that we can do this along with Operation Smile. Every 3 minutes a child is born with a cleft lip or cleft palate, and the mission of Operation Smile is to provide help and support to these children through providing 6,000 medical volunteers across 80 countries who are dedicated to help these children with facial conditions, most commonly cleft lip and cleft palate. More than 200,000 children are born with a cleft every year, and they are often unable to speak, eat, socialise or even smile. However, it can take as little as 45 minutes and cost just €180 or 182 francs for Operation Smile to provide a child with life-changing surgery. Now, in partnership with Operation Smile, EMEA Recruitment is raising valuable funds and aiming to create 100 new smiles to support the organisation to provide free surgeries for children and young adults all over the world. Please help us by donating through the link in the bio or get in touch to see how your company can help get involved too. For the moment, I'll leave you to carry on listening to the rest of the podcast, but if there's anything I can do in terms of answering any questions or finding out how you can help and support EMEA Recruitment and Operation Smile, then please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you once again and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
No, it's interesting. I mean, because what I thought it'd be good to lead on to actually is to maybe ask Olga a question related to this, because this approach and this mindset, are these parts of the philosophies of SmartPurse then?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, we went at this, or we are going at this from a globally universal opportunity of financial education, which if you look at some of the underlying data by the OECD and some of the other reports, really is still and remains one of the frontiers to be tackled, right? Being good with money, personal finance is not taught at schools or very rarely taught at schools, only starting now. So that means many of us adults today still don't know how to manage money well and how to deal with their money well. I mean, there was a piece of research that was suggesting that from the 10 things that British people wish they had learned at school, 5 were relating to money, and number 1 was budgeting. And for all the reasons that Jude mentioned, it is the women that, need this knowledge the most, because historically we not only have to overcome a knowledge gap, but also a confidence gap in order to be sound and deal with our money. And so I think the philosophy of SmartPurse is to give people exactly that. Impartial financial knowledge that basically does one thing. It empowers their choices and it empowers an ability to act, to really take action. People are not that concerned with the theory of finance and knowing all the ins and outs of the financial markets, right? We all use the internet, and not every and each of one of us understands how the computer works inside. Still, we can be stellar internet users. I think that applies probably to money too. But where we find that there is a lot of confusion is, for instance, understanding how do these products work, which provider to choose. 6 out of 10 women in our surveys has answered saying, I wouldn't even know the difference between the different fintechs. So what we are creating is a different kind of financial education, really practical rather than theoretical, and that proves to be extremely effective. 9 out of 10 women attest that they have increased their financial confidence. 8 out of 10 take action after the financial education. And now we are having here this talk all about the women, right? And Jude, you put out this wonderful phrase saying, SmartPurse has been built for the women, but it is useful for everybody. And that is also confirmed in our statistics, because 30% of our users actually are men.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. And actually, so I was gonna say what I may be a bit of the exception to the rule, because I'm actually awful with my my knowledge and ability on the financial side. So it's I think it's one of the questions I had, which was interesting, I think, for the network generally, but also for me as a personal point of view. I mean, how does it actually work in general then? Because you have this unique approach to helping women with managing their money, but what is the process from it? So, I mean, I can guess certain parts of it, but if you have a bit of a step-by-step guide as to actually how, let's say, a new client comes to you, what is the general process to get them from a novice to at least understanding, what is low, medium, and high risk investments and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost is to provide the inspiration and motivation to even deal with that topic. And we do that actually through a whole array of fantastic events, convening conversations, editorial content, etc. And once the person kind of has realized and say, really, I want to do something, I want to learn about this, then the second step is to take a self-audit, almost like a self-assessment. And we have a financial health check that functions completely without figures. You don't need to enter one single figure into that thing. It has 13 questions. And at the end of it, it will provide you with a snapshot of how you feel and what you know about money. And based on the results of that financial health check, you then select the course material or the reading material, podcast, whatever have you, for the areas where you want to improve the most. And people do that with us either by selecting a course, so they can come to an instructor-led course. They can consume a video on-demand course if they like to learn at home, or they can consume bite-sized chunks of financial education, so kind of micro lessons of 5 minutes every day, that makes it as easier and as intuitive to learn about money when you travel to work, or as when you are somewhere in your free time. And with these three methods, basically we cover a whole array of learning and teaching methods. Once the person has consumed that content, they either are already in the position to take action, or they might need some more help, in which regard they might be calling for a coach or a professional to help them with their finances. And then on SmartPurse, they can find a financial professional that has been pre-vetted, that we have selected, that we know are both trustworthy as well as will provide an inclusive and engaging customer experience. So depending on what you decide, whether you go with a fintech or you need a human, you basically find a selection of providers on the platform.
That's great. So, and can it be really for any level of person, because I'm sort of thinking that there's obviously a big area where you can help a lot of people, but I also feel that maybe some people might be a bit maybe unconfident to reach out in the first place. I mean, if you listen to both of you, you're both very successful, you're both very driven, you know what you want in your careers and in the business, but obviously not everybody is like that. So if there's people who are quite unconfident, maybe a bit nervous about approaching you in the first place, I mean, is there a message to these types of clients where maybe they might feel a bit nervous or even a bit embarrassed about their lack of knowledge, I would say?
Yeah, well, I think I'm a very good example. I mean, Olga is a really savvy, knowledgeable person about finance. I am not. I'm somebody who, like lots and lots of women, who, I'm good at the thing I do, like my job, but I never really attended to investments in pensions. I haven't got any stocks and shares. I've never done anything like that at all. And I am exactly the sort of person who goes, oh, do I have to open that bill even? So I've had to train myself to start becoming financially competent, which is not the same as in any way being expert. And what we found is that we've met women from all walks of life, from all classes, from all educational backgrounds, from all cultural backgrounds. And actually, most of us share that embarrassment and worry. You'd be amazed, honestly, Paul, by the kinds of people who look like they should know what they're doing, and we don't. So I think that, and then you'll also meet, a woman who might run her own nail bar, in a really tiny part of Britain, and she'll be brilliant on all aspects of money. So, people are surprising, but I think the common denominator is that most women have not got a grip on their money yet, and therefore we can all be embarrassed together, frankly.
No, I like that. That's a very good answer to that question. And I guess just in terms of SmartPurse, I was just wondering, is there a vision, a goal that you have for the business? I don't know if there's something like a 5-year plan where you say, okay, this will be a success for us in terms of what you have in mind for the company.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to scale SmartPurse globally. We want to bring it to more countries than Switzerland and the UK. We also have built the venture for multi-country scale in order to inspire many more women, but also to unite many more women on a global conversation around money and finance and economic empowerment. And so I think that's our big vision now, coming from, or having had a really successful year here in Switzerland and having some energy back in the UK to go multi-country next.
Exciting stuff. Well, obviously, we're going to wish you all the best with that, because it sounds like a great model, a big needs for that. And I was actually connected to both of you from a number of people in my network. So I know that the name is getting out there, and the ideas are certainly hitting the mark with a lot of key people in Holland and Switzerland that I know. So it's definitely doing the right thing, and I think it's there's a need there, which is always great to have as a starting point. And I guess this podcast almost has two halves to it, really, because we talked a lot about yourselves, how you met, and the vision and values of SmartPurse. But I also tend to ask guests on the podcast, obviously, about their own careers, with it being a recruitment focused podcast as well. So I think I touched earlier on the fact that you've obviously both had really exceptional careers, and I think Jude, you mentioned earlier, you're really proud of where you are at the moment on the career side of things. I wondered actually if there was a piece of advice you might give to people aspiring to reach their goals and dreams as you have done, what that piece of advice might be. And maybe if Jude, you want to go first, then Olga, if you want to follow, that would be great.
Well, I think it can be confusing to talk about a career as opposed to a life. The more we discuss like authentic leadership, the more we say, look, you have to connect up what you love doing, who you love being with, and what you care about with how you will spend the majority of the hours of your life. And the fact is, a lot of that is spent in work. So the key thing is, you will get your energy and your mojo from doing stuff that you believe in. Now, we're not all fortunate enough to be able to do that. We have to pay mortgages and, sort out kids, etc. So it's not that easy, I know. But, I would say never do something where you're going to compromise your belief system, because it will impact your energy. You won't feel truthful to yourself, and you'll probably not succeed. So do what you believe in.
No, I like it. And it's very, very true. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. You see, it's really, if you enjoy what you're doing, then you bring a lot more energy and efforts and resilience to that as well. I think it's something that I think, obviously, as you go through a career, you don't necessarily know what these things are until a bit later on. But certainly you're right in terms of it is where you spend the majority of your life is doing your job. And if you can get to a point where you don't think of it as a job and it's all part of life, then I think that's it's a good place to be. And what about yourself, Olga?
And so I think, following what Jude said, I would have said find your purpose, which sounds super philosophical, right? And I think my second piece of advice would be to have the courage to go for it. I see so many people being put down by the fact, I don't have the skills, or I might not be good enough, or maybe it's not the right time, or maybe, this needs to fall into place. And I think it's just so important that you have the courage and say, you know what, no excuses. this is what I want to be, this is what I want to do, I'm going to go and fight for it. And maybe it's not a straight line to success, for that matter, to anyone who is listening. You know, Paul, you were saying about these successful careers that Jude and I had. Yeah, maybe, but you know, many obstacles along the way as well. Nothing comes for free. And there are many days where one is like, oh my God, it's probably never going to come together, right? It all sounds beautiful on a podcast. And I think, yeah, no, really, it does. And so I think not taking no for an answer and having the courage to go for it. And if a piece is missing, go and get that piece. If it is education, get more education, but have the courage to really find that job that excites you, that gets you out of bed every morning and never feels like work.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. And I think obviously one of the things that you mentioned there as well, Olga, was that, you know, being with people you enjoy working with. And it takes us almost back to how we started the podcast with yourself and Jude meeting each other. I think, you know, we often find that, you know, really successful people that we have on the podcast, but actually just people in general, you know, when you see these really successful sports people or business or musicians, they're surrounding themselves with other successful, like-minded people. And I thought that I'd ask you both the question, if you had a mentor or someone who's really inspired you through your career. I don't know, Jude, if you want to take this one first.
Well, I always say that my dad was a great inspirer of me. I'm one of 4 daughters, and he, you know, both he and my mum believed in us without kind of the idea that somehow we had to fulfill a purpose as a girl as opposed to just a human. And so that really gave me a bedrock of belief in the right for me to be as much of me as possible. And I think since then, I don't know that I've had sort of mentors so much as chosen friends who want me to succeed, as opposed to chosen friends who might want me to fail a bit. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, that kind of relates to, you know, why Olga and I like each other. Like I 100% want Olga to succeed. Well, she's already succeeded in so many ways, but, you know, I think having each other's backs is a big thing.
Mm. I mean, just on that point, Jude, I mean, it's interesting because I think, no, I don't know whether you found this, but you know what I think a lot of people say is that as they get more successful in their career, their set of friends changes, but it takes you start to realize that's happening, and it's quite, you have to be quite, I think quite thick-skinned in some ways to realize actually, that you're sort of moving on maybe from some people who you've been friends with for years, but now, you know, you have very little in common. I mean, have you ever found that a challenge to do?
Well, to an extent, but, you know, first of all, I have friends that, as I think probably most people, you know, like my original school friends are still my best friends. So it depends what you mean by in common. If you've chosen people because, you know, they're good for your networking, or it's a kind of transactional relationship, then it won't last as you change the nature of your networks. But I think that we should be very careful of that, because it'll come back to bite you. And in terms of like staying relevant to others and yourself, what I find is that you should look for friendship from all ranges, all backgrounds. Like, don't stay inside your comfort zone. And the more successful you are, you can end up just working in quite a narrow comfort zone space. And it's bad for your spirit, it's bad for your intelligence, you know, it will make you smug. So I'm kind of not for, you know, just mixing with people who be like from your own circle. And apart from that, if we're really going to talk about diversity, then you have to keep on rethinking your friendship circles, because none of us tend to live in a diverse friendship circle, and we need to, in order to have empathy and great change for each other.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. I think it's true, and I think we were starting to see a lot of the diversity initiatives, as I mentioned earlier, starting to really move into more action now from companies and individuals. A number of people who we both know in our own networks as well are pushing these ideas through, which is good to see. And so, I mean, Olga, I suppose the same question to yourself as well. Really, is any mentors you've had that really stood out to you through your career?
Look, one of them is my mom. She supported my craziness ever since I was a child, and she's an entrepreneur herself. So she always nourished that belief that everything is possible if you set your mind to it. So I think that's a big part of giving me the courage. And then, yes, it's Jude, because Jude helps me to stay sane and challenges me every day in a different direction that I wouldn't think of myself. And then finally, I had the privilege when I was still working in financial services to really work for fantastic supervisors and bosses. Each and every one of my bosses has been an empowerer, an enabler, and challenger. In that regard, probably also a mentor, which I am incredibly grateful for. And that also probably brings the point that it's very important not only who you are working with, but if you are working in an organization, also who you are working for.
No, it's true. And I like the fact that obviously both of you chose one of your parents as well as being strong mentors. You know, it's often when we ask these questions, people, the parents often get overlooked. So it's good that you both mentioned your parents in this as well, which is great to see. And I guess, Olga, just sticking with you, I know I'm quite a big fan of reading these sort of management coaching books and life coaching books, and there's a lot of great quotes that you see posted on social media for taken from these books. I didn't know if you had a favorite sort of motivational quote that really you've used as a wallpaper, or that really means something to you and helps to motivate you.
Yeah, so absolutely. My absolute favorite quote is, "What is now proven was once only imagined."
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. And is this on your wall in the SmartPurse office?
Yeah, now you can't see me, but yes, it's pinned to my computer next to the quote, which is called "Focus on one thing at a time," because they kind of complement each other very well.
That's very true. And it becomes more and more difficult to do the focus side of things with all these different apps and devices trying to take our attention away from the thing we're trying to do these days. So if you can do that, then you're halfway through the battle, I think. So and then I guess I'd just like to end on the last question, really, maybe to Jude on this one. And it's really, if you could go back and offer the 18-year-old version of yourself one valuable piece of advice, what would it be?
Get a pension.
I like it. That's good. A good way to end that one.
I've done masses and masses of the things I've loved. I have been extremely happy. If I had at the same time put some money in a pension, I'd also be more secure, and that's what I would advise.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's probably. I was thinking that might be the best answer you could have given to end the podcast and everything we've been talking about, really. So that's really good. So. Obviously, I really appreciate the time with both of you to be on the podcast today. I know you're both really busy, so to get time with both of you is brilliant. And I think the network are going to take a lot from the conversation we've had. Obviously, if any of the network wants to reach out to you to talk either about SmartPurse or connect with you from a life or career point of view, what's the easiest way they can do that?
Well, they can come to us on our website, and obviously we're both on LinkedIn. That's probably the quickest way, I think, LinkedIn. Would you say, Olga?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn, smartpurse.me, smartpurse.me. And otherwise, just connect, drop a comment over LinkedIn. Very open. Actually, we do answer every reach out that we receive.
Excellent. Well, no, once again, thank you very much, both of you, for your time. Really enjoyed the conversation, and take care, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. If you'd like to reach out to Paul or myself, please feel free to send a connection through on LinkedIn. And if you'd like to listen to previous episodes of the podcast, you can find them all at our website, www.emearecruitment.eu.